Retiring is certainly a goal for people, whether it is in Mexico or not. But it's not necessarily when you retire that's going to determine if you can afford to, right? I mean, it's what you do before then. And one of those things that people end up with often that can be a pretty big detriment to that retirement plan are student loans. Kim Miller joins a certified financial planner with Sweetwater Investments, who started his career in financial services 25 years ago. Well, welcome to the show, Kim. How are you?
I'm good. Thanks, Ben.
Good. And you and Dennis work together. Dennis, we love having him on.
Yes, Dennis does all the talking and I do all the work.
Oh, it's a good deal. Sounds like me and Heather.
Yeah,
I do all the talking. She does the work. So Kim, this is a big topic because college education is a big deal. I mean, I'm of the thought that people should get a college education, but you bring up some pretty astounding facts when it comes to student loan.
It's an amazing story. There's over $1 trillion worth of student loan debt out there right now, and it's bigger than credit cards, which is only about $800 billion. And one of the reasons that student loan debt is getting so large is because when you're in school, you're not paying the interest payments, and the interest clock keeps ticking. So your loan is probably 50% to 75% larger by the time you get out of school. And that's when you start making your payments. Is after you.
And I would think, a lot of people, you just think, okay, well, I'm just applying for a student loan. It's just what you do. And then you go to college, and most people don't probably think of the ramifications at 18 years old of what that's going to truly cost them over time.
No, they don't. They haven't looked at it ahead of time, and all of a sudden the decision is there. Oh, okay, I got accepted. Well, how am I going to pay for it, instead of thinking about how you're going to pay for it before you get accepted and choosing the right school? Because if you go to a private school, they hand out a lot of money. Your net cost of attendance might be lower at a private school than it is a public school, because the private school is going to give you money to help you out. So you want to be sure you know what the price tag is before you sign on the line and agree to pay that money back over time.
So why is student loans so sticky?
Well, it's the worst kind of debt because you cannot get rid of it. You can go through a bankruptcy, Chapter 7, which is full liquidation. That student loan debt will skip right over that process and follow you through the rest of your life. It cannot be discharged.
Better off putting it on a credit card.
You could do that because a credit card
then going through bankruptcy
you can get out of in bankruptcy. That's exactly right.
So it's not that you can't get out of it; it's that you have to pay it off.
You have to pay it off. You have no other choice.
And you'd even mentioned, when you think about a mortgage, okay, if you overextend on your mortgage, you can still sell your house. You can't really sell your education.
That's correct. Like Rodolfo said, you can do a short sale and you can get out of the mortgage, even if you don't make any money or you lose money on the sale, but it's over.
It's not, you don't know the full 400,000 or whatever.
Student loan has no asset except you, and you are the person that the lender is going to go after.
So you're really mortgaging your life.
You are mortgaging your life and your future earnings until you get it paid off.
So what does this lead to? Because people do make more money when they go to college and they
Yes.
come out the other end. In fact, that's a lot of the ways people are actually getting employed now. So the benefit is there. But on the other side of this, you kind of have to delay some other big financial choices, right?
Right. You might not be able to buy a house. You might want to delay having children. Certainly, you want to make sure that when you get that education, that it's going to be in a profession where you can get a good job and get a good paycheck so you can pay that back. That's another step in the process.
So I guess, going to college just to go and coming out the other end of college with just a job that pays, not much more than had you not gone, not really a good idea if you're using student loans.
Yeah, it's not much sense to go to college and end up bagging groceries because you didn't do the right thing when you were in school.
This is where a UW person throws in the wazoo jab. But I went to University of Arizona, so I'm staying out of it. So you've had some pretty incredible stories that I want to get to. But before we do, the other thing you talked about is they can be consolidated, but the interest rate may actually be higher. So you might pay them off a little quicker, but it could really strap you financially.
Yeah, if you have federal loans, those can be consolidated into a single loan, but the rate might be higher and the repayment period might be shorter, both of which results in higher payments. Plus, you have one large payment to make rather than maybe you have 2 or 3 or 4 smaller ones, and it's harder to manage your cash flow if you have one large payment versus smaller ones.
So I guess the point of this story is really to make sure you understand what you're doing, or even more importantly, if you have kids going to college, to make sure you understand what they're doing before just applying for student loans, because that's what people do.
That's what everybody does, and you need to think about that ahead of time. Also, if you're a parent of a student or a future student, you want to be sure and not be a cosigner on those student loans, which you can do. Usually the interest rate is lower. There's some other factor involved there, but the problem with that is that then the parent is on the hook for those loans if the student cannot or will not make the payments later.
And that can just lead to big trouble all around.
That's right.
So let's talk a little bit about some of these stories. We're here with Kim Miller, certified financial planner with Sweetwater Investments. There's a story a couple stories you shared with the Seattle Times for a recent article. We don't have time for all four, but I do want to at least hit this one where this guy owed $120,000, but more importantly, how he started to pay it back a little quicker.
Well, he had gotten an undergraduate degree, went to graduate school, got a master's, and he owed somewhere around $120,000. He didn't even know when he came to meet with me. He said, well, I don't really know how much I owe. So the first thing was to find out, well, what do you owe? So we did that with an hour or so on the phone calling his lenders. And his idea was to join the Army, because the military does offer to certain people help with paying your student loans. It's up to $65,000, and it's not forgiveness. It's actual money. They make a payment for you. One of the key points there, though, is that it doesn't happen right away. First of all, you have to make sure they give it to you. You have to negotiate.
You have to join the Army.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, let's talk about the big thing here. You're
That's
going
right.
through a major lifestyle
You
switch.
have to sign up for your 6 years.
Right.
That's right. That's correct. And then you have to negotiate for this. They don't just give it to you. You have to say, well, I want that benefit. And the payments are made at the end of the year for the first 3 years. So in the meantime, you've got to make those payments to keep your loans current. Otherwise, they're going to send the collection agencies after you, and the Army is going to make that payment at the end of the year. But you can't just wait around for them to make that payment and think everything will be hunky-dory. You've got to pay attention between those time payments.
Well, and the other interesting part that you talked about in this story was one of the big steps he had to take was even to understand what student loans he had, because,
right.
In the mortgage world, we see them on credit reports, and they have one from every quarter or every semester. And it's just, and you can have somebody 12, 14, 16 student loans, and they're like, I don't know, I haven't had to pay them yet. They're all in forbearance.
That's right. They just ignore it until they get out of school, and then they start getting the bill 6 months later, and they go, oh, now I've got to do something about this. Well, you want to know ahead of time what you have to deal with before you get to that point, because people they make even dumber choices when their backs are against the wall.
Yeah. I mean, there are certain places that it's definitely worth it. I mean, if you're going to go become a doctor or a specialist in some way that's pretty much guaranteed a big chunk of salary after, you're done, especially with, say, a master's or a PhD, I could see the value. If you're just going to college because that's what other people are doing, but really your intention is to maybe have a craft that could be perfected in, say, a 2-year school or a technical school.
Right. Go to tech school.
I mean, because that's what some people do. That's what a lot of people want to do.
Right. The first thing, it's like anything in life. Decide what you want and then go get it. Don't go get it and then decide what you want later. Just because you have a college education doesn't mean that was the right thing for you, or that's what you should have done, or that's even what you wanted to do. I've talked to people, well, I went to the University of Hawaii because my friend went there. Well, $40,000.
That's not why they went there.
$40,000
They went there
later.
because it's 80 degrees and it's on a beach, Kim. I mean, I know why I went to University of Arizona, and it had nothing to do with the education, although I told them told everybody it was because they had a great business school.
Isn't that one of the top party schools in the country?
I believe it's number
I think
one
it's
or
on the
two
party
this
list.
It also is one of the top business schools, though. Let's give Ben that.
Well, it's the business, all right.
Yeah, that's why I went. Kim, we do have to go to break. Stick around just for a few minutes.
Okay.
Heather's going to join us, and we're going to talk a little bit more about headlines and helping people make the right decisions. We'll be right back after this break. That's Kim Miller with Sweetwater Investments. You're listening to Brashenomics.
Well, I thought